The Meridian Star left Bayfront Marina at 9:14 p.m. on a Saturday in April, carrying 340 people, a live television crew, and a hull weld that had been failing, invisibly, for 5 years. The yacht was 190 feet of Reyes Marine Holdings' flagship achievement. The vessel the company had built to prove that its newest hull design could outperform anything else in its class. Tonight was the celebration. Reyes Marine had priced its IPO at $6.4 billion that afternoon. The maiden celebration cruise was supposed to be the image that ran on every business channel by morning. Champagne, string lights, 340 of Miami's most important people watching the skyline recede while Marcus Reyes, 44, founder and CEO, stood at the bow with his daughter and told a television anchor that Reyes Marine Holdings had built the safest, most advanced hull architecture in the industry. Sam was 43 years old, a single father, and until 4 minutes earlier he had been doing the graveyard maintenance shift at Bayfront Marina, the shift that checked hull integrity on departing vessels using a passive acoustic monitor clipped to the dock pilings. At 9:11 p.m., as the Meridian Star's engines came up to cruising speed and cleared the breakwater, the acoustic monitor had picked up a resonance frequency in the aft port hull section that Sam recognized within 4 seconds, because it was a frequency he had specifically warned about in writing 5 years earlier on this exact vessel, before it had a name. He had swum the 200 yards from the dock to the departing yacht because there had been no faster way to catch it. He had climbed the boarding ladder because the crew, seeing a stranger in the water, had thrown him a line without understanding who he was or why he was screaming about a weld number. He reached the main deck, dripping, past a line of catering staff and photographers, and walked directly toward Marcus Reyes, who was mid-sentence in front of a television camera with his daughter Elena standing at his shoulder. "The aft port hull weld is failing," Sam said. "Section 41. You need to stop the engines and turn back now." Marcus Reyes looked at the dripping stranger who had just interrupted a live broadcast on the night of his company's $6.4 billion IPO. "Get this man off my yacht," he said. Security had Sam by both arms within 8 seconds. He did not stop talking as they dragged him toward the stern. "Stay with this, because in 19 minutes, the Meridian Star was going to start taking on water through the exact weld Sam Ellery had just tried to warn them about. The same weld he had flagged in a report 5 years ago that got him fired instead of thanked. And the 340 people currently laughing at security dragging a soaking wet stranger off the deck were about to need him more than anyone on that boat had ever needed anyone. Sam Ellery lived in a single-story house on a canal in Miami's Shenandoah neighborhood, held together by the specific competence of a man who understood structures and refused to let the ones he lived in fall apart around him. His daughter's name was Ivy. She was 9 years old, with dark hair that curled tight in the Miami humidity, brown eyes that missed nothing, and the specific fearlessness of a child who had grown up on docks and boats. She could name every vessel type in Bayfront Marina by silhouette before she was 7. Sam had spent 9 years as a structural engineer for a naval architecture firm that designed hull systems for commercial and luxury marine vessels. He had been, in the words of his former supervisor, the best hull fatigue analyst on the eastern seaboard. 5 years ago, his firm had been subcontracted by Reyes Marine Holdings to certify the hull architecture for a new flagship vessel, the composite steel hybrid design that would become the Meridian Star. Sam had run the fatigue analysis himself. He had identified a specific weld configuration in Section 41 where the composite steel transition point created a resonance vulnerability. He had written a 9-page report. He had recommended a redesign of the transition joint, a fix that would cost approximately $340,000 and delay the launch by 6 weeks. The shipyard director overseeing construction for Reyes Marine was a man named Victor Cole. Victor had told Sam's supervisor that the delay was unacceptable and that an alternative welding contractor had certified the joint acceptable under a modified stress tolerance standard. Sam had reviewed the alternative certification. It used a stress tolerance model inappropriate for a vessel of this class. He had said so, in writing, twice. He had been removed from the project. 6 weeks later, he had been terminated, officially, for repeated failure to align technical recommendations with client engineering standards. His professional certification had not been revoked, but his employability had been. He had applied to 11 positions in the 18 months after his termination. He had received 2 interviews and 0 offers. He had taken the marina maintenance job 4 years ago because it paid the bills, and because Ivy's school was 8 minutes away, and because it kept him near boats, near the thing he understood. He had kept the 9-page report. All of it, the original analysis, the fatigue modeling data, the correspondence with Victor Cole, the alternative certification he had disputed. He kept it in a fireproof document case in his truck. He had also kept, in the front pocket of his work coveralls, a single welding electrode, the specific rod type that had been used, incorrectly, in Section 41. He had taken it from the shipyard floor the day he was removed from the project. He had been running the marina's passive acoustic hull monitor every night for 3 years, a piece of second-hand equipment he had bought himself and calibrated himself, because he had never stopped being the kind of person who listened to what boats were telling him, even after nobody else was listening to what he told them. At 9:11 p.m. on a Saturday in April, the equipment picked up the exact resonance signature he had predicted 5 years earlier. The 200 yards between the maintenance dock and the departing Meridian Star took Sam 3 minutes and 40 seconds to swim, which he knew because he had been counting, the way he counted everything when his mind needed somewhere to put its attention besides panic. He had not stopped to think about whether this was a reasonable thing to do. He had heard the resonance frequency come through his headphones, and his body had started moving before his mind had finished processing what it meant. The Meridian Star's stern was already 40 yards out and accelerating when he hit the water. He swam the way he had swum as a younger man, before the years of marina shifts and disappointment had settled into his shoulders. The specific efficient stroke of someone who had grown up on this water and had never fully lost the conditioning, even if he'd lost almost everything else. The crew who spotted him and threw the line had no context for what they were pulling aboard. It was only once he was standing on the boarding platform, water running off him onto teak decking that had cost more per square foot than his house, that anyone had the chance to ask who he was. He didn't wait for them to ask. He moved through the boarding area toward the main deck with the specific single-mindedness of a man who understood exactly what was about to happen and exactly how little time there was to stop it. He found Marcus Reyes at the bow, under television lights, mid-sentence, his daughter Elena standing at his shoulder in a pale green dress, the Miami skyline receding gold and glittering behind them, exactly the way the marketing materials had promised it would. "The aft port hull weld is failing," Sam said. "Section 41. You need to stop the engines and turn back now." The anchor's microphone was still live. The moment went out, unedited, to whoever was watching Reyes Marine's launch coverage in real time. Marcus Reyes turned toward the interruption with the specific controlled fury of a man whose $6.4 billion evening had just been derailed on camera by a stranger in wet coveralls. "Who is this?" he said. Not to Sam, to the security detail. "Get this man off my yacht." Elena Reyes, 33, sharp-featured, the company's CFO, did not immediately move to intervene. She was looking at Sam with a different expression than her father's. Not outrage, but the specific arrested attention of someone who has just heard a very precise technical phrase, Section 41. Security had Sam by both arms before she could say anything. They pulled him back from the bow, past the cameras, toward the stern. "Section 41, Sam shouted, as they dragged him. "The transition weld. It's a fatigue fracture. It's been developing for 5 years. Ask Victor Cole. He has the alternative certification. Ask him what stress model he used. Get him off the boat," Marcus said again, already turning back toward the camera, already reaching for the composure the interruption had cost him. "I apologize for that. Reyes Marine takes security very seriously, and this will not happen again." Sam was pinned against the stern railing, 2 security officers holding him, the yacht's wake churning white behind him, the Miami skyline sliding away. He looked at his watch. 19 minutes, he thought. Maybe less. At 9:33 p.m., 19 minutes after Sam Ellery was dragged off the bow, a member of the engine room crew reported an unusual vibration in the aft port hull section to the ship's captain. At 9:36, the vibration had become audible on the lower decks. At 9:39, water was visible on the lower deck flooring near Section 41, rising fast enough that a member of the catering staff slipped in it and fell. At 9:41, the captain sounded the general alarm. Sam heard it from the stern. When the alarm sounded, he did not look surprised. He looked like a man whose worst professional nightmare had just been confirmed by the exact instrument he'd spent 5 years wishing he'd been wrong about. He moved immediately toward the lower deck stairwell. The 2 security officers who had dragged him earlier didn't stop him this time. Whatever authority structure had existed 20 minutes ago had dissolved into the specific chaos of 340 people in formal wear, discovering that a $6.4 billion yacht was taking on water. He found the chief engineer at the base of the stairwell, ankle-deep in rising water, radioing the bridge with information that was incomplete and slightly wrong. "It's not the propulsion housing," Sam said. "It's section 41, aft port, 12 feet forward of where you're standing. The weld's been fatiguing for years. It's not a breach, it's a fracture propagation. You need to isolate the compartment and get everyone toward the bow and upper decks. And you need to reduce speed to minimize additional stress on the hull." The chief engineer looked at him. "Who are you?" the engineer said. "I designed this hull," Sam said. 5 years ago, I flagged this exact weld. Nobody listened. I need you to listen now." The engineer had approximately 4 seconds to decide whether to trust a man he'd never met over his own initial assessment. In a rapidly worsening emergency, with 340 people above him who did not yet understand how serious this was. He made the right decision. "Tell me what to isolate," he said. Elena Reyes found Sam at 9:48 p.m., directing 2 crew members in the flooding compartment with the specific calm authority of a man who had spent his entire professional life preparing, without knowing it, for exactly this 7 minutes. She had come down to the lower decks not because anyone asked her to, but because the moment the general alarm sounded, she had thought of one thing: Section 41, the stranger's voice, the specific number. "You're the man from the bow," she said. He looked up. "Sam Ellery," he said. "I need everyone off this deck in the next 4 minutes. You said you designed this hull. I did the fatigue analysis 5 years ago. Section 41 was in my report as a critical vulnerability. Your shipyard director overruled the fix with an alternative certification that used the wrong stress model." He was working as he spoke, not looking at her, his hands moving fast and sure over the panel seal. "I got fired for saying so twice." Elena Reyes stood in rising water, in a pale green dress that had cost $11,000, and understood, with the specific vertigo of someone whose entire professional worldview has just been rearranged in real time, that the man in front of her was not a random intruder who had gotten lucky with a guess. He was the person who had tried to prevent this exact night 5 years before it happened. "I need that report," she said. "It's in a fireproof case in my truck," Sam said. "Bayfront Marina, Dock C, Gray Tacoma. I left it there when I swam out." "You swam out?" "There wasn't a faster boat," he said. She looked at him for one more second, soaked, precise, utterly unconcerned with anything except the compartment he was sealing. And then she picked up the radio, clipped to a nearby crew member's vest. "This is Elena Reyes," she said. "I need the Coast Guard cutter that's en route to also dispatch a unit to Bayfront Marina, Dock C, Gray Toyota Tacoma. There's a document case inside. I need it brought to the Meridian Star or wherever we end up putting 340 people tonight. It's evidence." "Evidence of what?" the crew member said. Elena looked at Sam, still working. "Evidence that someone tried to stop this," she said. "And evidence of who stopped him." The evacuation took 51 minutes, from the moment the general alarm sounded to the moment the last lifeboat cleared the Meridian Star's hull. 340 people in formal wear, many of them in heels and dress shoes entirely unsuited to a wet, listing deck, moving in organized lines toward lifeboats while a 190-foot yacht took on water 12 feet beneath them. Sam worked the lower decks for the entire 51 minutes. He did not go up to a lifeboat himself until every compartment near Section 41 had been cleared and sealed to his satisfaction, which meant he was among the last people off the vessel, alongside the chief engineer and 2 crew members at 10:32 p.m., climbing down a rope ladder into a Coast Guard rescue boat in water that had gone fully dark except for the emergency lighting still running on the Meridian Star's upper decks. Elena stayed with him for most of it. She helped carry 2 children to the lifeboat queue. She helped an elderly board member down a stairwell that had become a shallow river. She did not, at any point in the 51 minutes, ask Sam a single question that wasn't directly useful to the evacuation. On shore, at Bayfront Marina, a crowd had gathered, the families of guests, marina staff, And within 30 minutes of the first news alert, a cluster of television vans, whose satellite trucks lit up the parking lot in harsh white light. Ivy Ellery was in that crowd. She had known, with the specific, unshakable certainty of a 9-year-old who has grown up around boats, that her father was somewhere in the middle of it. Ivy stood at the edge of the crowd, in front of a television camera she did not notice was pointed partly at her, watching lifeboats come in against the marina lights, scanning each one for a face she knew better than her own. She found him on the 4th boat, soaked, exhausted, helping a crew member secure a line before he even looked toward shore. "That's my dad," she said, to no one in particular, in a voice that carried further than she expected. A reporter standing nearby heard her, looked at her, crouched down, the way reporters do when they realize a child has just said something that might be the story. "Sweetheart," the reporter said, "is your dad on that boat?" "He designed it," Ivy said. "He tried to tell them it would break. Nobody listened. Everyone always thinks he doesn't know anything because he just does the marina now. But he knows everything about boats. He always has." The reporter looked at her cameraman. The cameraman was already rolling. The fireproof document case arrived at the Coast Guard station at 11:52 p.m. Sam opened it in a conference room that had been converted into an impromptu incident command center. Coast Guard officers, an NTSB investigator, Marcus Reyes, Elena Reyes, and a Reyes Marine attorney with the specific pale expression of a man doing very fast arithmetic about liability exposure. Sam laid out the 9-page report, and then he laid out the alternative certification, the document Victor Cole had commissioned to overrule his recommendation. The NTSB investigator, a woman named Dr. Patel, read the alternative certification for 6 minutes without speaking. Then she looked up. "This stress tolerance model," she said, "is designed for stationary industrial applications. It's not appropriate for a dynamically loaded marine hull." "That's what I said," Sam said. 5 years ago. "Who signed off on using this model?" "Victor Cole," Sam said, "shipyard director. He commissioned the alternative certification specifically to overrule my report because implementing my fix would have delayed the launch 6 weeks and cost approximately $340,000. Marcus Reyes was staring at the document with the specific expression of a man watching his company's near-catastrophe resolve, in real time, into a story about a decision he had never known was made. "Victor Cole works for me," he said. It wasn't a question. "He was the shipyard director on this build," Sam said. "He's still the shipyard director," Marcus said. "He's been with the company 11 years, Elena said quietly. "He signed the final construction sign-off. He certified, in writing, that the hull met all applicable structural standards." "Was there ever a re-inspection of Section 41 in the intervening 5 years?" Dr. Patel said. "I checked them tonight," Sam said. Everyone looked at him. "While I was waiting for the evacuation to clear. There's no record of a hull integrity re-inspection on that section since original construction. Every other structural section on this vessel has been inspected annually. Section 41 was never touched again." The room was very quiet. "Why not?" Marcus said. "Because re-inspecting it would have required acknowledging it was a concern," Sam said. "Once you build a lie into a construction record, the easiest way to protect it is to never look at it again." Marcus Reyes sat down. It was the first time in 3 hours anyone had seen him do anything other than stand. By 6 in the morning, the footage of Ivy Ellery telling a reporter that her father had designed the boat and warned them it would break had been viewed 4.2 million times. Reyes Marine's stock, which had priced at $6.4 billion valuation less than 18 hours earlier, dropped 34% in pre-market trading. Marcus Reyes called a press conference. For 11 a.m., he stood at a podium in front of the same bayfront marina where the crowd had gathered the night before, in front of significantly more cameras than his IPO celebration had drawn, and he told the truth. 19 hours ago, a man named Sam Ellery boarded my yacht uninvited, soaking wet, and told me that a hull weld was about to fail, he said. "I had him removed. I want to be direct about that, because it happened on camera, and I'm not going to pretend it didn't. Sam Ellery designed the hull architecture of the Meridian Star 5 years ago," he continued. "He identified the exact failure that occurred last night. My shipyard director, Victor Cole, overruled that fix with a fraudulent alternative certification in order to protect a launch schedule. Victor Cole was terminated this morning. He looked directly into the primary camera. "Mr. Ellery," he said, "if you're watching this, I'm sorry. And I need you to come back to work." Victor Cole was arrested 6 days later on charges of engineering fraud and falsification of federal maritime compliance records. What did require Sam, on the Tuesday after the press conference, was a meeting in Marcus Reyes's office, glass-walled, 30 floors above Biscayne Bay, with the specific hushed opulence of a company that had just watched its stock lose a third of its value and was determined to project stability anyway. "I owe you an apology that a press conference doesn't cover," Marcus said. "I had you thrown off my own boat while you were trying to save it. I've watched the footage more times than I want to admit. There's also a version where nobody's on that boat at all, because the fix gets made 5 years ago and none of this happens," Sam said. "I'm less interested in the apology than in making sure there's a next version where that's what happens instead." Marcus nodded slowly. "I want to offer you the position Victor Cole held, head of structural compliance and hull engineering, full authority." "I have conditions," Sam said. "Every hull reinspection gets published internally with my sign-off attached and dated. Second, I want authority to halt any launch schedule for a structural concern without requiring executive sign-off. Third, I don't want anyone else's career to end the way mine did. I want a formal whistleblower protection policy, reviewed by outside counsel, that actually protects engineers who flag safety concerns," Elena said. "I'll draft it myself. I want to be the one who writes it." Marcus looked at his daughter for a long moment. "All right," Marcus said. Sam looked at the welding electrode he had, without quite meaning to.